The alley behind Broad Street was drowning in rain and silence, the kind of silence Lagos kept only for the forgotten. Broken glass glittered under the street lamp as Jonathan Nwosu struggled to lift his head. His designer suit shredded, his ribs caving under another kick. "Still breathing," the thug leader mocked, pressing a boot against Jonathan's spine. Jonathan forced out a breath. "Tell me who sent you." The man laughed. "Powerful people don't get answers. They get erased." A faint rustle cut through the storm. At first Jonathan thought it was debris blowing across the pavement, until a young woman stepped into the circle of light. Barefoot, drenched, unmoving. She didn't look like salvation. She looked like someone who had already survived too much. "Walk away," she said quietly. Her American accent softened by exhaustion but firm enough to freeze the men mid-swing. The leader smirked. "Or what?" Her eyes didn't blink. "Try me." Jonathan felt the shift before he understood it. This stranger wasn't scared of them. She was scared of what she might have to become again. And the moment she raised her fists, the night itself seemed to hold its breath. What happens next changes both their fates. If this opening pulls you in, hit like and subscribe to Canada's Heartfelt Tales so you never miss what follows. Rainwater pooled beneath the broken street lamp as Jonathan Nwosu struggled to push himself upright. The girl's voice, steady, unshaken, hung in the air like a torch cutting through darkness. The thugs hesitated, confused by the sight of this barefoot young woman stepping between them and their wealthy prey. Thunder rolled above the city, low and restless. Jonathan tried to speak, but blood filled his mouth. The leader, a thick-shouldered man known on the streets as Crowder, sneered at the girl. "You think we're scared of you," he growled. The others laughed, but it was nervous laughter, the kind that crept out when instincts sensed danger before the mind understood why. The girl didn't move. Her wet hair clung to her cheeks, and rain soaked the thin fabric of her shirt, but she stood as if rooted. "You've done enough," she said quietly. Crowder stepped closer until he towered over her. "Walk away," he said, "before you end up worse than him." Jonathan forced out a whisper. Don't get involved." But she took one step forward, the kind that shifts the balance of a room. Crowder swung first. A wide, careless punch meant to intimidate. She slipped under it, her body moving with frightening control. Before he recovered, she struck his ribs with a short, clean blow that emptied the air from his lungs. One of the other men lunged, grabbing at her arm, but she twisted free and knocked him backward. It wasn't flashy, not theatrical. It was efficient, trained, and absolute. Jonathan watched through blurred vision, stunned. Whoever she was, she didn't fight like a street kid. She fought like someone who'd survived lessons nobody wanted. Within seconds, the alley fell silent again. Crowder lay clutching his ribs, gasping through rain and humiliation. The others didn't dare speak. The girl stood over them, not triumphant, not angry, just tired. She turned to Jonathan. "Can you stand?" Jonathan tried. Pain shot through his chest, and he collapsed against the wall. She knelt beside him, her breath quick but steady. Up close, he noticed small scars across her knuckles, thin, pale reminders of battles fought far before tonight. "Why help me?" Jonathan asked. Her eyes softened for the first time. "Because people like them think no one will." She lifted him, supporting most of his weight despite her small frame. As they emerged from the alley, the city lights washed the fear from his face just enough for him to stay conscious. She spotted a taxi, waved it down, and refused to step inside with him. "You need to go to a hospital," she insisted. "You could ride with." "No," her tone was final. "I can't be seen." That was the last thing he remembered before everything went dark. Jonathan woke to the sharp smell of antiseptic and the steady hum of monitors. The hospital lights felt too bright, too clean for what he'd endured. A doctor explained his injuries, but Jonathan barely listened. His mind replayed the alley, the blows, the girl's voice slicing through terror. When his sister, Dana, arrived, she stood at the foot of his bed with narrowed eyes. "Who did this to you?" she demanded. "I don't know," Jonathan answered. But someone sent them. Dana crossed her arms. And the girl. The one who brought you here. She saved my life, he said simply. Dana frowned, as if unsure whether to believe such a story. Security's already investigating. Whoever came after you will regret it. But Jonathan shook his head. They weren't after my wallet. They wanted a message sent. Days passed, and Jonathan recovered slowly. Pain lingered, but anger grew faster. He was one of the city's most outspoken philanthropists, pushing initiatives that threatened powerful pockets. He wasn't naive enough to think the attack was random, yet he couldn't stop thinking about the girl, the way she fought, the way she disappeared into the rain. He needed to find her, not as a savior, but as someone whose courage deserved recognition. Meanwhile, deep in the city's neglected zones, the girl, whose name was Riley Ward, leaned against the cold brick of an abandoned shop. The wind cut through her thin clothes, but she didn't flinch. She'd grown up with far worse than the night's chill. A friend from the streets approached, someone she trusted just enough to share a few words with. "Riley," he whispered, "you're all over the whispers today. Heard you took down Crowder's crew." Riley stiffened. "That's not a story you should repeat." "It's already out," he said nervously. "Crowder's furious. Says you humiliated him." Riley exhaled. Her past had taught her that humiliation was the most dangerous weapon. Men like Crowder didn't forgive it. "If he comes, he comes," she muttered. But fear wasn't what tightened her chest. It was Jonathan's face. The quiet desperation in his eyes. She'd seen that look before. In herself, in kids trapped in systems built to break them. She'd walked away from that world, but something about him had pulled her back for one night. One night was supposed to be enough. 3 evenings later, Jonathan stood on his penthouse balcony, staring out at the shimmering skyline. His home security chief, Mason Clark, stepped beside him. "We traced Crowder," Mason said. "He works under someone bigger. Someone who doesn't like your community projects." Jonathan felt his jaw tighten. "Name?" "Not yet. But Crowder will surface soon. Men like him can't stay quiet." Jonathan's pulse quickened. "Good. I want him found." Mason hesitated. "There's something else." Cameras caught a glimpse of the girl. "We still don't know who she is. No ID. No records." Jonathan stared into the night. "Find her. I need to thank her properly." But Mason studied him carefully. "Is that all this is?" Jonathan didn't answer. Riley tried to avoid trouble, but trouble had a way of following those who refused to bow. The neighborhood where she slept, a row of abandoned shops tagged in faded paint, buzzed with tension as Crowder's men prowled corners, asking too many questions. Late that night she overheard them. "Boss says she's dangerous," one man whispered. "He wants her alive." "Alive?" The other scoffed. "Thought he'd want revenge." "He does. Says he wants to deliver her to the man who hired him. Racist piece of trash from uptown. Says the girl embarrassed him by interfering." Riley's pulse hammered. So someone with power had ordered Jonathan beaten, and now wanted to silence her. She slipped away before they sensed her presence. She had always kept her movements quiet, but now she moved like smoke, invisible to predators who fed on noise and confidence. The next morning, Jonathan's sister entered his recovery room with a grim look. "You need to stay somewhere secure," she warned. "Someone targeted you because you refused to fund their private development project. They wanted to scare you into silence." Jonathan nodded, expecting this. "And Crowder? Still at large. But he's angry." Dana softened her tone. "And still, thinking about the girl." Jonathan didn't deny it. "If someone's hunting her because she helped me, then I owe her protection." Dana sighed. "You always did have a soft heart." "Fine. We'll find her." They found her sooner than expected. Riley was cornered in an alley by 2 of Crowder's men when Jonathan's security arrived. Sirens echoing off concrete. Riley fought to defend herself, but the men were armed and prepared. When Mason's team intervened, the attackers fled, leaving Riley breathing hard, her hands scraped. Jonathan stepped out of the SUV. Their eyes met. "You again," Riley murmured, exhausted. "You shouldn't be alone," Jonathan said quietly. She straightened despite her trembling muscles. "I've been alone my whole life." "Not anymore," he replied. Riley looked away. "I didn't save you to owe you anything." "You don't owe me," Jonathan said. "But someone wants you silenced. Come with me until we stop them." Riley hesitated, but Mason spoke up. "They're intensifying. You're on their list." She had survived worse. But something about Jonathan's sincerity made her pause. For once, letting someone else take the lead didn't feel like surrender. She finally nodded. "Just until this ends." Jonathan's home felt too polished for Riley. Marble floors, quiet halls, walls that didn't whisper danger. She stayed near windows and exits, a habit etched deep into her survival. At dinner, she picked only at the edges of her food. Jonathan watched her thoughtfully. "You can relax," he said gently. "Relaxation gets you hurt," she replied. He understood more than she expected. "People have tried to control me too. Just in different ways." She met his gaze, surprised by the honesty. Silence settled between them, not awkward but fragile. Before either could speak again, Mason rushed in. "We got Crowder." Jonathan stood immediately. "Where?" "Abandoned warehouse. He's cornered. Police are moving in." Riley tensed. "He won't go quietly." Mason nodded. "No. He wants leverage." As if on cue, Jonathan's phone buzzed. An unknown number. He answered, and Crowder's voice slithered through the speaker. "Bring the girl," Crowder growled. "Or the world hears exactly what you said about her kind back when you ran for city board." Jonathan froze. Riley's eyes widened, not in fear but in recognition. "You used racism to target him," she said quietly. Crowder laughed. "You think I care about race? Care about money? But my employer, he cares a lot. Let's just say he wants the city cleaned of people who don't fit his aesthetics." Nwosu here offended him. Jonathan's face hardened. "You're a coward, hiding behind prejudice you don't even believe." Crowder snorted. "Bring the girl. Then we trade." Jonathan ended the call. The room felt colder. Riley spoke first. "He wants me to walk into a trap." "You're not going," Jonathan said. "I'll handle it." Riley shook her head. "This started because I stepped in. Let it end that way." Jonathan stepped closer. "I won't let you be bait." Her eyes softened. "I won't be bait. I'll be the one who finishes it." They went together. The warehouse loomed, its broken windows flickering with shifting shadows. Rain returned, tapping the metal roof in an uneven rhythm. Police surrounded the exits, but Jonathan and Riley approached the front. Slow, steady, resolved. Inside, Crowder paced with a smug grin. "Look who came dressed for defeat." Riley stepped forward first. "Your boss won't protect you." Crowder laughed. "Protect me. He promised a fortune if I handed you over." Jonathan crossed his arms. "Then he lied. Just like you lied to all the men you dragged into this." Crowder swung at Riley, but she moved before he finished the motion. Her kicks landed with precision, driving him back. He grew sloppy, angry, desperate. Jonathan watched every movement, every shift of weight, every flicker of pain across her face. Finally, Riley swept Crowder's legs, sending him crashing onto concrete. Police stormed in, forcing him upright and locking cuffs around his wrists. Crowder spat curses as they dragged him away. "This isn't over. My employer still wants." A detective interrupted. "Your employer is already under arrest." He turned to Jonathan. "Turns out he funded hate groups across the city. You just helped expose everything." Riley exhaled slowly. For the first time in years, her shoulders loosened. Jonathan turned to her. It's over. Riley shook her head gently. No. It's just beginning. He nodded, understanding exactly what she meant. Crowder shouted one last threat, but his voice cracked with fear as officers shoved him into the police van. For the first time tonight, someone who thrived on intimidation tasted real helplessness. And for the first time in a long time, Riley allowed herself to breathe. But what happened the next day would show the city exactly what happens when hatred finally faces consequences. In the days after Crowder's arrest, the city shifted in ways neither Jonathan nor Riley expected. News outlets replayed the takedown again and again, but Riley avoided the screens. She wasn't looking for applause. What she noticed instead was how people glanced at her with something different in their eyes. Not fear, not pity, but quiet respect. Jonathan saw the change in himself too. The attack had stripped away illusions he'd carried for years, forcing him to see the city beyond glass towers and polished floors. Riley hadn't just protected him that night. She'd shown him the cost of looking away. One afternoon, they stood on a rooftop overlooking the harbor. The air smelled of salt and rain, and the sun broke through the clouds in thin, determined lines. Jonathan turned to her. You know, none of this ends where it started. Riley nodded. That's the point. We get to choose the next step. He didn't try to convince her of anything, and she didn't promise more than she could give. Yet something unspoken settled between them, an understanding built on shared fight rather than fear. Below them, the city pulsed with restless energy, but for the first time, Riley felt she wasn't battling it alone. Truth had consequences, yes, but it also cleared paths she didn't know existed. The last light of day glimmered across the water, spreading like a quiet vow. What they survived wouldn't be wasted. If this story moved you, please like, share, and subscribe to Canada's Heartfelt Tales so we can keep bringing powerful journeys to life.